Now let's chart some data for our paper airplane. So plus sign on the top left to add a new sheet, delete the table, double click on the tab to rename it, and we will call this tab data. The emoji that I will choose here is, of course, the bar graph. So now I actually want to add a table into my sheet, and I will rename this data table Paper Airplane 1 Data. On the leftmost column, I'll call these the trials because I know as a good scientist I need to absolutely run more than one trial. Here in column B, I will call this time of flight in seconds. Next will be horizontal displacement in meters. And here I'll use more of a qualitative data set. I'll call this overall flight evaluation. Okay, so now we want to absolutely format our columns to take in a specific type of input. So I will highlight all of the cells under time, tap on the paintbrush, and here you see I can format the cell. So I'm going to choose number, and I want to be a little specific. So I'll tap on the info, the I in the circle, and I want to only take decimals up to 2 places. And that looks pretty good. So I will do the same thing for horizontal displacement. I'll tap Format. This will be a number, and I would like to take decimals, but only up to 2 places. Now for overall flight evaluation, when I format these cells, I want to make these a star rating. So if you look down to the bottom of your format options, you see pop-up menu, checkbox, star rating, text, and I want to make this a star rating. And for column E for right now, I'll tap on the column header E and just delete it because I think for this presentation, 3 columns of data is enough. Now, what's really great is that I can create a separate sheet for my students to collect this data. So instead of the students having to record the data on a separate piece of paper or enter it directly in the cells, I will use the form function to take in the data and automatically populate this data table. So we'll follow the same steps as before with one slight change. So we'll press on the plus sign on the top left, but here instead of new sheet, I will select new form. So now this form is asking me to choose a data table that will be linked to this form. Here I see Paper Airplane 1 data. I will select that. And now I have a form that I can enter in my data as I see it. So if the students were flying the paper airplane and collecting the data, maybe someone was using their phone as the stopwatch and someone else was measuring on the floor the horizontal displacement, they could input all of that data right into this form and it will populate into their data table. This is an asset I'm really excited to use this year because my students in class tend to collect data out of order. So what I mean by that is if we have a lab where you need to change the masses on a cart with every successive trial, my students will collect all of the mass data at once and then go back and try to actually run the experiment. So I'm hoping by using these forms and having the students collect all the data for one trial all at once, it'll keep them from kind of going out of order with their data collection. So here I'll just call this trial 1 for plane 1. Maybe the time of flight was 0.6 seconds and my horizontal displacement was 0.4. And overall, I thought this flight was pretty good. So maybe I give it 3 stars. Now moving on to trial 2 for plane 1. Trial 2. Plane 1, and maybe this time the time of flight was longer, 0.75 seconds, in which case my horizontal displacement was greater and it was 0.65 meters, and this flight I thought was better than the first, so maybe I give that 4 stars. Now when I tap back to my data, I can see that my inputs have started to populate into my data table. To switch to the next trial, I would just tap on the arrow at the bottom of the screen. So you see at the bottom center of our screen, we see a back arrow, a plus sign, a trash can, and a right arrow. So to add a new trial, I would just tap to the right.